Libya witnessed by mid-February 2011 events that were characterized by armed violence in an unprecedented phenomenon the country has never known before. Such events were never witnessed in any other country of the region in modern age history. The Libyans did not find themselves engaged in an internal conflict, rather were continuously bombarded by NATO, which included the world's most powerful and influential nations. All of this is happening under the blockade that included Libyan currency being printed abroad, as the currency was being delivered to Libya. People were banned from importing fuel. Funds of joint stock companies which profit goes to most needy Libyan families, including the elderly, orphans and widows, in what is known as the Oil Wealth Distribution Program for Libyans, where nearly 1 million Libyan benefited from the program. Each family is granted 500 Libyan dinars on a monthly basis. As if it is happening is an organized campaign against the simplest of human rights, driven by specific countries and executed by the international institutions. How did this happen? How did the United Nations institutions get involved? And how did the Security Council, which associated itself with the Libyan conflict, was misled? Libya was not isolated from the events that were witnessed in the region. Libya is located between Tunisia and Egypt, where both countries witnessed peaceful popular demonstrations by the beginning of 2011. The situation erupted in Tunisia and President Zain al-Abidin Ben Ali left the country. Egypt also witnessed similar events and President Hosni Mubarak stepped down. But what did happen in Libya? Where are the similarities and differences between what occurred here and in neighboring countries? Calls for the demonstrations on the 17th of February 2011 emerged on Facebook by the beginning of 2011. The day coincided with the 5th anniversary of the martyrdom of the 13 people in Benghazi, who fell at the hands of the embassy guards of the Libyan consulate on the 17th of February 2006, when demonstrators attacked the Italian consulate protesting against an Italian minister and the member of the Extreme North Association, who insulted Islam by wearing a t-shirt bearing insulting cartoons of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Opposite that, the voices calling for calmness and the preservation of stability and the security in Libya emerged, whom established multiple sites on Facebook. Families of the 13 martyrs of the Italian consulate incident issued a statement that was published in the mass media, and in which they opposed demonstrations on the occasion and accused pro-demonstrations of trafficking with the blood of their children. The leader Muammar al-Qaddafi received them on the 15th February 2011, and they expressed their position and keenness on the security and stability of Libya. On the 15th of February 2011, security apparatus in Benghazi arrested Fathi Tarbil, the coordinator of the Association of the Victim of Abu Slim Prison 1996, after he incited people in Tripoli to head for Abu Slim Prison under the pretext that the prison is burning, and he instigated them to storm the prison so as to free prisoners. Some members of the association, being led by Tarbil, mediated for his release, and he was released on the same day with the guarantee of the mediators after he confessed of making up the call contrary to reality. However, members of the association gathered in front of the police station and staged demonstrations immediately following the release of Tarbil, and marched for 10 kilometers and reached Al-Shajara Square, central Benghazi. Also, counter-demonstrations were staged in the streets of the city, and when they reached the same square, security forces separated the two sides with water cannons, and there were no victims on that day. Morning of the 16th of February 2011, a group of lawyers staged a demonstration in front of the North Benghazi court, calling for a legal and political reform, which was covered by the mass media, and no, it was not challenged. Parallel with that, obscure forces and organization moved into an opposite direction and exceeded the customary and the expected in Libya, rather in the region as in the entire world. It is time for sleeper cells of extremists returned from Iraq, Afghanistan, and Guantanamo to declare themselves. In Benghazi, on the evening of the 16th of February 2011, attackers set ablaze 3 police station headquarters of internal security. As these locations that contain weapons were stormed, 6 people were killed. Hussein al-Juwayfi military barak center of the city and Al-Abrag air base 25 kilometers from Al-Bayda. This video demonstrates that soldiers refused to open fire at protesters. Rather, they retreated to the center of the barak and opened fire into the air as the attackers were advancing in the barak. Attackers were able to storm Hussein al-Juwayfi and Shahat military barak and Al-Abrag air base. They confiscated a variety of weapons and detained a number of soldiers who were guarding Al-Abrag base in the airport. The demonstrator practiced the shocked all. Soldiers were slaughtered and another was hanged. Following a brief interrogation, a manner that bears the fingerprints of al-Qaeda in the execution of detainees. In the city of Az-Zawiyat, 40 kilometers west of Tripoli, army bases and ammunition depots were attacked early morning as security forces were caught off guard. Attackers brought light and medium arms and tanks into the square of the city, and the number of people in the square rapidly increased, where more tanks and anti-aircrafts were brought in. They began distributing weapons in a manner that would enable them to challenge any newcomer. The cover of the tank's cannon demonstrate that they were never used before. The video displays that the inhabitants of the city were behaving casually in the absence of security forces and soldiers. In the following day, armed rebels began digging trenches and the square was turned into a heavily armed fortress with the contribution of Libyans and foreigners. In Misrata, 200 kilometers east of Tripoli, rebels waged an armed attack for several directions on Misrata air base, and they controlled it and taken some weapons after they got some small and medium weapons from the military camps in the city. In different Libyan cities, police stations and internal security headquarters were attacked. Attackers exploited orders given to evacuate weapons from police stations and orders not to open fire under any circumstances. Also, different administrative headquarters were vandalized and set ablaze. A military camp in Zwara, Sabrata, Jdabia, Darna and Zintan, among other places, were the target of attacks that the rebels who confiscated large quantities of arms and ammunition. Benghazi, the 17th of February 2011. Following the burial of victims of the previous day, Benghazi main police station was targeted as another attacker, Fadil Abu Amr Barak, to capture it. Confrontations began. The soldiers began at 5 p.m. and continued until midnight. Attackers' attempt to enter the barak failed. 14 people were killed. On the 18th of February 2011, attacker used TNT bombs and Molotov and heavy vehicles which they confiscated from Libyan and foreign companies to demolish the walls of the barak. As attackers insisted and soldiers defended, 24 people were killed. On the 19th of February 2011, the battle against Al-Fadil Abu Amr Barak continued. Attackers used machine guns confiscated from military camps in Shahat city, 220 kilometers east of Benghazi. On the 20th of February 2011, attacker used tanks and used bombs and light rifles for the first time in the attack. This day also witnessed the first suicide attack carried by Al-Mehdi Ziu against gates of the barak. He used explosive and gas canisters. Attackers eventually succeeded in storming the barak, and this day witnessed more victims from both sides. With regards to the repercussions of the events witnessed in Benghazi, most of the victims on both sides in the confrontations died. The gates of the military camp or the police stations, as these places were being stormed, and which were places at least 15 kilometers from the usual places where peaceful demonstrations take place. Several cities east and west of Libya fell into the hands of the rebels in an organized and coincident process, The toll was the burning of all police stations that witnessed unrest, and rebels stormed most of the military camps in the country. They confiscated different types of weapons, including 250 tanks, 73 armored vehicles, 112 artillery, 176 anti-aircraft machine guns, 254 rocket launchers, 222 light machine guns, 3,628 rifles, and a large quantity of ammunition. According to military sources, perhaps now rebels possess more firepower than that in the possession of neighboring countries. As the country fell into armed violence that was far from the peaceful demonstrations, the widespread Arab mass media suppressed facts and began fabricating stories and pictures, and began to deliberately spread rumors cited from unidentified eyewitnesses and unconfirmed sources. At the time when international news agencies began citing the false reports thinking it was confirmed from reliable sources, that is committed to the professionalism and subjectivity, which was never the case. The calamity was different countries and international and regional organizations relied on the false media reports in knowing facts on Libya. Neither the countries nor the organization directly communicated with the Libyan authorities to send a fact-finding mission. Drifting behind media reports led to the issuance of United Nations Security Council resolutions 1970 and 1973, which were based on three accusations propagated by the media, and the Security Council gave its verdict before looking into the matter. First, making the assumption that Libyan authorities opened fire at peaceful demonstrations and committed atrocities and killed thousands. Second, the Libyan authorities used aircraft and bombed the residential districts in Tripoli. Third, using mercenaries brought from several African nations to confront the Libyan demonstrators and committed crimes. However, facts refuted mass media reports with regards to firing at peaceful demonstrators. Everyone in Benghazi knows that families of the Abu Slim prison persisted on organizing demonstrations in the streets of Benghazi and continued to do so for years under the protection of security personnel. By looking into the reality of events and places where victims fell, and all of the victims fell at the gates of the military camps while attempting